The moment the front door clicked shut, my entire world shattered into pieces. I stood in my sister's living room, listening as the taxi pulled away from the curb. Rachel Miller and Mark Stevens were gone, heading off on their Mediterranean cruise. 7 days of sunshine and cocktails while I stayed behind to look after their daughter. I turned with a smile, ready to ask Maya Stevens what she wanted to do first. Maybe we could bake cookies, watch a movie, or read together like we always did. But Maya was not reaching for her tablet. She was not typing a message into her text-to-speech app. She was standing completely still, staring at me with an intensity one had never seen in her 9 years of life. And then my niece, the child I believed had been born unable to speak, opened her mouth. "Aunt Sarah, don't drink the tea Mom made. Mom is doing something bad." Her voice was clear and steady, like she had been speaking her whole life. My blood turned to ice. "I need to go back about 6 hours because you must understand how I ended up here, standing in my sister's house and realizing that everything I thought I knew about my family was carefully staged fiction. My name is Sarah Miller. I am 29 years old. I work as an accountant at an accounting firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thrilling, I know. While other people dream about exotic trips and romantic adventures, I dream about perfectly balanced spreadsheets. My therapist says I use numbers to feel in control. She's probably right. That morning started like any other. Coffee, silence, my apartment still half asleep. I was enjoying the calm when my phone rang. Rachel, my older sister. There are 6 years between us, but sometimes it feels like 60. Her voice was soft and sugary, which should have been my first warning. She only used that voice when she wanted something. "Sarah, I have the biggest favor to ask." She explained that she and Mark had booked an anniversary cruise. 7 days in the Mediterranean, romantic, spontaneous, and they needed someone to watch Maya. Of course I said yes. I always said yes to Rachel. I told her I would love to spend time with my niece, and I meant it. I truly adored her. Even though communicating through a device could be exhausting, there was something special about Maya. She had large, observant eyes that seemed to take in everything. When I read to her, she leaned against my shoulder and relaxed as if my voice made her feel safe. You see, Maya was supposed to have been born with a rare condition. At least that was the story Rachel told everyone. Something neurological that affected her ability to speak. Doctors supposedly discovered it when Maya was around 3. Rachel said nothing could be done. I never questioned it. Why would I? She was my sister. Mothers know their children. And I was not around much in Maya's early years. I had taken a job in Atlanta shortly after she was born. It was a good opportunity, impossible to refuse. I flew back for holidays, maybe an occasional weekend. By the time Maya was 3, she was already silent. By then, Rachel had created the entire narrative. I moved back to North Carolina 3 years ago when our mother became ill. Cancer. The slow, unforgiving kind. I wanted to be closer. I wanted to help. During those months, I spent more time with Maya. I read to her, brought her books, stayed present. Even without words, we built something real. Our father, Robert Miller, had died 4 years before our mother. Heart disease. He was quiet and dependable, the kind of man who fixed broken things and never complained. After he died, it felt like our family lost its foundation. When our mother passed away 18 months ago, she left behind a trust worth $1,500,000. Their life savings. Dad's insurance. Everything. The conditions were clear. Any major withdrawal required signatures from both Rachel and me. My mother was careful like that. She also left me the family house since Rachel already owned property. At the time it seemed fair. Now I wonder if my mother knew something I did not. That Saturday morning I drove to Rachel's house just before noon. It was a beautiful place with a wide lawn, the kind of home that looks like it belongs on a magazine cover. Rachel greeted me with a hug. That alone felt strange. She was not affectionate. "You're a lifesaver," she said. She looked flawless as always. Hair styled. Nails perfect. Designer luggage lined up by the door. Mark was loading bags into the taxi outside. He barely acknowledged me. Quick wave. A muttered hello. He looked tense and sweaty, but Mark was always a little on edge, so I ignored it. Rachel walked me through the house as if I had never been there before. The kitchen. Maya's room. The television remote. Then she opened the refrigerator and pulled out a large thermos with a yellow lid. I made this for you, she said, pressing it into my hands. Herbal tea for stress. You look exhausted, Sarah. You work too much. Something in her tone felt wrong. Too firm. Too deliberate. But I smiled and thanked her because that was my role with Rachel. Smile. Thank her. Never question. She had always positioned herself as the problem solver, even when I did not ask for help. When I went through a painful breakup at 25, her solution was lavender oil, green juice, and a vision board covered in Brad Pitt photos. Manifest your future husband, she said. I still do not trust vision boards. The taxi honked. Rachel hugged me again. 2 hugs in one day. That alone should have alarmed me. She rushed outside. Mark followed in silence. I watched them get into the car and disappear down the street. Then I closed the door, turned around and saw Maya standing there, staring at me like she was about to announce the end of the world. My hands were still wrapped around the thermos. It suddenly felt dangerous. Heavy. My niece, the child I believed had never spoken, had just warned me that my own sister meant to harm me. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this story, please hit the subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there. I read every comment and your support truly means everything to me. I set the thermos on the counter as if it were radioactive. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. Then I knelt in front of Maya, lowering myself to her level. You can talk. I whispered. She nodded. Her eyes were wide and frightened, but there was something else there too. Resolve. I always could, Aunt Sarah. Mommy made me stop. The room seemed to tilt. I pressed my palm against the floor to steady myself. What do you mean she made you stop? That was when my 9-year-old niece told me a story that shattered everything I believed about my family. Maya was not born unable to speak. She never had a neurological disorder. That story was a lie. A lie Rachel had told for 5 years. Maya spoke like any other toddler. She learned new words every day. She sang songs. She asked endless questions. She said, I love you at bedtime. Then one afternoon everything changed. She was playing upstairs in her room when she became thirsty and went downstairs for juice. Her mother was in the kitchen talking on the phone. She did not notice Maya standing quietly in the doorway. Maya heard words she did not fully understand. But some of them stayed with her. Aunt Sarah out of the picture. Once Daddy is gone, then Grandma, everything is ours. He trusts me completely. She is so stupid. Maya was 3 years old. She did not understand the phrase out of the picture, but she understood the name Sarah. And she understood the cold, cruel way her mother said stupid. The next day, innocent and confused, Maya asked, Mommy, what does out of the picture mean? Rachel's face turned to stone. She grabbed Maya's arms too tightly, leaving small bruises, and knelt until they were face to face. Listen to me very carefully, she said. If you ever speak again to anyone about anything, something terrible will happen to Aunt Sarah. Your voice is dangerous. Every word you say hurts her. If you love your Aunt Sarah, you will never make another sound. Do you understand? Maya loved me. I was the aunt who brought her picture books, the one who smiled at her as if she were the most important person in the world. So Maya stopped talking. She was 3 years old. She chose to give up her voice to protect me. I sat on Rachel's kitchen floor, tears running down my face as this child explained the sacrifice she had made. 5 years of silence. 5 years of fear, believing that every word might harm the person she loved most. And Rachel, my sister, the devoted mother everyone admired, had used that fear. She took Maya to doctors, played the role of a worried parent, and collected a diagnosis of selective mutism. But she told everyone a different story. She said it was neurological, something Maya was born with, nothing that could be treated. She made sure no one ever saw the real medical records. I was living in Atlanta, visiting only a couple of times a year. I had no reason to doubt my own sister about her child. My eyes landed on a crystal plaque sitting on the mantel. Mother of the Year. Rachel had received it from the social club 2 years earlier. People praised her patience, her devotion to her child with special needs. I suddenly wanted to hurl that plaque into the sun and watch it burn. What else do you know, sweetheart? I asked softly. What else have you seen? It turned out that being silent made Maya invisible. Adults forgot she was there. They spoke freely around her, assuming she could not understand, or that she could never tell anyone even if she did. Maya saw everything. She watched her mother practice my signature over and over on scrap paper until it looked almost right. She overheard phone calls about the trust and moving money around before I could figure it out. She saw her father grow more and more afraid of her mother, agreeing to everything, never questioning her. She watched Rachel perform for neighbors, church friends, and teachers, wearing the flawless mask of a loving parent sacrificing everything for her disabled child. Then 2 nights earlier, Maya heard something that made her realize she could not stay silent anymore. She crept to the top of the stairs, just as she had done countless times before. Her parents were in the kitchen planning. The tea will make her sick enough to land in the emergency room, Rachel said. Nothing dangerous. Just severe stomach pain and extreme drowsiness. She will be out for days. What about Maya while we are gone? Mark asked. Mrs. Higgins next door will take her, Rachel replied. I already told her Sarah has episodes sometimes. She believed it completely. And while Sarah is in the hospital, we drive to Richmond. There is a lawyer there who does not know her. I have all the forged papers ready. We transfer the entire trust into my name. By the time Sarah recovers, it will be done. She will never be able to prove anything. There was no cruise. No vacation. Just a plan to poison me, forge my signature, and steal over $1 million. My own sister. I pulled Maya into my arms and held her close. This brave, extraordinary child had carried this weight for 5 years. She watched her mother lie to everyone. And when it mattered most, she found the courage to break her silence. You saved me, I whispered into her hair. You know that, right? You saved my life. She hugged me back, her small arms tight around my neck. I could not let Mommy hurt you, Aunt Sarah. Not anymore. I looked at the thermos sitting on the counter. Innocent. Yellow lid. Homemade tea from my loving sister. Evidence. My tears stopped. Something cold and focused settled in my chest. Rachel thought she had 7 days to steal everything. She thought I would be lying in a hospital bed, too sick to stop her. He was very wrong. The first call I made was to Chloe Bennett. We met in college. She became a nurse. I became an accountant. Different paths, but we stayed close. She was the kind of friend who showed up with ice cream after breakups and told you the truth even when it hurt. I trusted her completely. She answered on the second ring. Sarah, what's going on? I need you to come to Rachel's house right now, I said. Something happened and I cannot explain it over the phone. Please. Something in my voice must have frightened her. She did not ask questions. I am on my way. 40 minutes later, she was at the door, still wearing her scrubs, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Talk to me. So I did. The plan. And Maya, sweet, silent Maya, who had spoken for the first time in 5 years to warn me. When I finished, Chloe was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Maya, sitting on the couch, watching us with those serious, observant eyes. Chloe walked over and knelt in front of her. You are the bravest kid I have ever met, she said gently. Maya almost smiled. Chloe stood up. All right. Time to focus. First things first. That tea needs to be tested. I know someone at the hospital lab who can run an emergency analysis tonight. If there is anything wrong with it, we will know by morning. She pulled on latex gloves she somehow had in her purse and carefully took a sample from the thermos, sealing it in a small container. What kind of person poisons tea? She muttered. I always knew Rachel was off. Remember when she told you that haircut made your face look less round? That was not a compliment. That was psychological warfare, sister edition. I almost laughed. Almost. Now, Chloe continued, what else do you have? If she has been running this scheme, there has to be more evidence. I looked at Maya. Sweetheart, you said you know where Mommy keeps important papers. She nodded and climbed down from the couch. In the office, she said. There's a locked drawer. I know the code. How do you know the code? She typed it in without hesitation. I have seen it lots of times. She never noticed me. There was a small, sad pause. Nobody ever notices the quiet child. She led us into Rachel's home office, a neat, carefully styled room that looked like it belonged in a magazine. There was a large desk, filing cabinets, and one drawer with a digital lock. The code is 0612, Maya said. June 12th. Their wedding anniversary. Of course Rachel would use something sentimental. Made her feel clever. I entered the code. The drawer clicked open. What we found inside made my stomach twist. First, bank authorization forms with my signature. Except it was not my signature. It was close. Very close. But the curve on my capital letter was wrong. Anyone who truly knew my handwriting would see it. Rachel had practiced, but she was not perfect. Second, bank statements from the trust account. 18 months of activity. Withdrawal after withdrawal, always just under $10,000, carefully below the reporting threshold. Rachel had done her homework. The total was roughly $210,000, stolen while I trusted her completely. Third, printed emails between Rachel and an attorney in Richmond named Arthur Sterling. They discussed an emergency transfer of trust assets and described my supposed mental instability and inability to manage money. The meeting was scheduled for day 4, exactly when the fake cruise was supposed to be underway. Fourth, and this nearly broke me, a file labeled Sarah Mental Health Concerns. Inside were pages of handwritten notes in Rachel's handwriting. Dates. Descriptions of my alleged erratic behavior. My depression. My paranoia. Complete fabrications. She was building a paper trail, preparing to paint me as unfit if I ever challenged the fraud. My own sister was preparing to call me unstable, destroy my credibility, take everything and leave me with nothing. Not even my reputation. Chloe photographed every document, every page, every date. This is premeditated fraud, she said quietly. This is not impulsive. This is calculated. She had been planning this for over a year. My mind snapped into work mode the way it always does. Dates. Patterns. The amounts withdrawn each month. The signatures that almost matched mine but not quite. Numbers do not lie, and these numbers were telling a story that was impossible to ignore. Then Chloe's phone buzzed. Her contact at the lab, working the overnight shift, had rushed the analysis of the tea. The results showed a concentrated mix of a powerful laxative compound and a sedative herb. Not deadly but absolutely disabling. Anyone who drank it would be violently sick and barely conscious for somewhere between 48 and 72 hours. Hospital-level sick. Exactly what Maya had warned me about. Rachel was not trying to kill me. She was too careful for that. She only needed me out of the way long enough to take everything. I thought about my emergency savings account, $12,000 tucked away in a separate bank that no one knew about. Years ago, a financial advisor told me to always keep walk-away money. I had followed that advice quietly and never mentioned it to my family. Now that money was going to fund my fight. Sometimes boring financial planning saves your life. There was one more call I had to make. James Sullivan. We were in the same study group in college. He went to law school while I went into accounting. Now he was an assistant prosecutor in Mecklenburg County. I called him and told him everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Sarah," he said at last, "this is fraud, forgery, attempted poisoning, and what your sister did to that child. Coercive control. Psychological abuse. That is serious. Very serious. What do I do?" I asked. "Let me handle the legal side," he replied. "I will coordinate with local police and reach out to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This crosses state lines, which makes it federal. We will contact the Richmond lawyer too. He might be an unwitting participant or he might be involved. Either way we find out." Then his voice sharpened. "And Rachel cannot know you are on to her. If she gets spooked, she could disappear with whatever money she can access. You need to make her think her plan is working perfectly." I looked at the thermos still sitting on the kitchen counter. I had to pretend I drank it. Pretend I was sick. Pretend I was helpless while my sister drove to Richmond to rob me. 3 days of acting. The performance of my life. "I can do that," I said, and I meant it. I sat in Rachel's living room staring at my phone. Maya was beside me on the couch, quiet but alert. Old habits die hard. Even now that she could speak, she still watched everything with those careful eyes. I dialed Rachel's number. It went straight to voicemail, which was exactly what I expected. If she were truly on a cruise, she would have limited service. Of course, she was not on a cruise. She was in a hotel in Richmond, getting ready to steal my inheritance. But I had to play along. I left a voicemail and made my voice weak and shaky, the voice of someone barely holding it together. Rachel, something is really wrong. I've been so sick all night. Throwing up. Dizzy. I can barely stand. I think I need to go to the hospital. Maya's okay. Mrs. Higgins can take her if I have to go to the emergency room. I am so sorry to ruin your trip. I will figure it out. I hung up. My hands were steady. My heart was cold. Chloe, sitting across from me, gave me a thumbs up. Oscar-worthy, she said. That little quiver at the end was perfect. Thanks, I said. I learned from watching Rachel fake emotions my whole life. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Not a call. Not a worried voicemail asking which hospital. Not a frantic message asking to speak to her daughter. Just a text. Oh no. Feel better soon. Do not worry about Maya. Mrs. H is great with kids. Rest up and take care of yourself. See you in a few days. I stared at the pink heart emoji for a long time. My sister might have tried to drug me. She was actively planning to steal over $1 million from me. And her response was a cartoon heart and an exclamation point. I have seen people put more effort into replying to a wrong number. She did not even ask which hospital, Chloe said, reading over my shoulder. She did not offer to come home. She did not ask to talk to Maya. Nope, Chloe said. Your sister is a sociopath. I am starting to think actual sociopaths try harder than this, I muttered. Over the next few hours, Chloe's husband, who worked in information technology, gave us a crash course in tracking social media clues. It turned out Mark was not as careful as Rachel. His social media location services were still enabled. He had posted a selfie at a coffee shop the morning before, grinning like an idiot. The location tag showed Richmond. No beach. No cruise ship. No Mediterranean sunset. They were exactly where Maya said they would be. While Chloe worked on their digital trail, I went back to the locked drawer. There had to be more. Rachel was meticulous. He kept records of everything. I found them at the bottom, underneath a stack of old tax returns. Letters. Handwritten. Dated during our mother's final months. My hands shook as I read them. They were from Rachel to our mother, Patricia. Written while Patricia was dying of cancer, weak and frightened, fighting for every breath. In the letters, Rachel begged, then demanded that Patricia change the will. Leave everything to Rachel alone. Cut me out completely. Sarah is single, she wrote. She does not have responsibilities like I do. I have a daughter to raise. I need this money. You always favored her anyway. This is your chance to finally make things right. If you ever loved me, you will do this. The manipulation. The guilt. The cruelty of pressuring a dying woman. Then I found our mother's reply, handwritten on her personal stationery. The writing was shaky. She was so weak by then, but the words were steady and firm. I will not punish Sarah for being responsible. I will not reward you for being greedy. The trust stays equal. This discussion is over. Do not bring this up again. I love you, but I am disappointed in who you have become. Patricia refused. Even on her deathbed, she protected me. So Rachel waited. She waited for our mother to die, and then she started forging. I sat on the floor of that perfect home office, holding my mother's final words in my hands, and I cried. Not for myself. For my mother. For the betrayal she had seen in her own daughter before the end. Aunt Sarah, Maya's small voice called. She stood in the doorway. Yes, sweetheart. Are those letters from Grandma? Yes, I said. She walked over and sat down beside me on the floor. Her small hand found mine. Grandma told me something once, she said quietly. When Mommy was not in the room, she told me, watch your mama, little one. Something is wrong in her heart. I thought she meant Mommy was sick, Maya added. Like her actual heart. I did not understand. I think Grandma knew. I swallowed hard. My mother always saw people clearly. Sharp until the end. Observant. The kind of woman who noticed everything but chose her battles carefully. Do you think she knew about me? Maya asked. That I was not really unable to talk? I thought about Patricia, about the way she structured the trust, about the way she protected me even while she was dying. I think, I said slowly, Grandma trusted me to figure it out eventually. And she trusted you to be brave when it mattered. Maya squeezed my hand. That evening, James Sullivan called with updates. Things were moving faster than I expected. Local police had been fully briefed. With evidence of fraud, forgery, and attempted poisoning, they were taking it seriously. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had been consulted. Interstate wire fraud, moving money across state lines through deception, was a federal offense. Rachel had turned this into a federal case all by herself. And the Richmond attorney, Arthur Sterling, James had reached out through his contacts. It turned out Sterling had been having doubts. The signatures on the authorization forms looked slightly off to him. He had already been considering canceling the meeting. When authorities explained what was actually happening, he agreed to cooperate fully. The sting was set for day 4. When Rachel and Mark walked into that law office expecting to complete their theft, police would be waiting. Your job, James reminded me, is to keep pretending. Keep sending updates about how sick you are. Make her believe everything is unfolding exactly as planned. So I did. Day 2. A text. Still so sick. The doctor thinks it might be food poisoning. So strange. Maya Stevens is being wonderful with Mrs. Higgins. Day 3. Another text. Barely able to keep water down. So weak. Please do not cut your trip short. I will be fine. Just need rest. With every message, I pictured Rachel Miller reading my words, smiling to herself, convinced that her foolish, trusting sister was exactly where she wanted her. That same day, James Sullivan arranged for a child advocacy specialist to take Maya's statement. It had to be done the right way. Recorded on video. A child psychologist present. Every legal protocol followed for a minor witness. Maya was nervous. She sat in a chair that was too big for her, her feet dangling above the floor. But once the questions began, she straightened her back. She used her voice, still unfamiliar after 5 years of silence, and told them everything. What she heard when she was 3. The threats. The fear. The choice to stop speaking. The years of listening quietly. The night she overheard the plan about the tea. When it was over, she looked at me through the observation window. That is the most I have talked since I was 3, she said. My voice feels tired, but it feels good. Like I have been holding my breath underwater for years and I finally came up for air. I wanted to run into the room and hold her, but I had to wait. Protocol. When they finally let me see her, I hugged her so tightly I probably squeezed the air right back out of her. One more day, I whispered. Just one more day and this is over. She nodded against my shoulder. One more day. Day 4. Richmond. 10:15 in the morning. Arthur Sterling's law office, on the 3rd floor of a professional building with a beautiful view of downtown that no one there was going to enjoy. I was not there in person. James Sullivan set up a secure video feed so I could watch from Rachel's living room. Maya sat beside me holding my hand. Chloe Bennett sat on my other side. We watched the lobby camera as Rachel Miller and Mark Stevens walked through the front door. Rachel looked flawless. Professional dress. Modest jewelry. A concerned expression carefully arranged on her face. She carried a leather folder, the same one from her home office, stuffed with forged documents and stolen dreams. Mark looked like he was about to be sick. Sweat darkened his collar. His eyes kept darting around the lobby. He knew something was wrong. He always had. He was just too afraid of his wife to stop it. They smiled at the receptionist, gave their names, and were led down a hallway toward the conference room. Rachel walked in first, confident, ready to finalize the biggest theft of her life. Arthur Sterling sat at the head of the table. Gray-haired. Serious. He did not smile. He did not stand to shake her hand. 2 other people sat beside him. A man and a woman. Plain clothes. Professional. Rachel hesitated in the doorway. I thought this was a private meeting, she said, that honey-sweet voice slipping out again, the one she used when something felt wrong. "Please have a seat, Mrs. Miller," Sterling said calmly. "These are Detectives Morrison and Park. They have some questions about the documentation you submitted." Through the video feed I watched my sister's face. The flicker of confusion. The rapid calculations behind her eyes. Then the decision to push forward. She sat down, crossed her legs, folded her hands neatly on the table. "Of course," she said. "Whatever I can help with. Is there a problem with the paperwork?" Detective Morrison's tone was calm, almost friendly. She asked Rachel to confirm her identity, her relationship to me, and her role as co-trustee of our parents' estate. Rachel confirmed everything. Smooth. Confident. She still believed she could talk her way out. Then Detective Morrison placed two documents side by side on the table. On the left, my forged signature. On the right, my verified signature from bank records. "Mrs. Miller," Morrison said, "can you explain why these signatures do not match?" For a fraction of a second, panic flashed across Rachel's face. Then the mask dropped back into place. "My sister has very inconsistent handwriting," she said. "She always has. And frankly, she is not mentally well. I have documentation regarding her instability." Detective Park interrupted gently. "We have reviewed that documentation. The notes about your sister's supposed mental health issues." He paused. "Interestingly, her employer describes her as one of the most detail-oriented professionals they have ever worked with. Her physician confirms she is in excellent physical and mental health. 3 colleagues submitted statements describing her as exceptionally stable and trustworthy." The mask began to crack. "They do not see her the way I do," Rachel snapped. "Family knows the truth." Detective Morrison's voice remained calm, but it hardened. "Now we have bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals totaling $210,000 over 18 months. We have email correspondence with this office discussing emergency trust transfers. We have forensic analysis confirming forged signatures." She slid another document forward. "And we have laboratory results from the tea you prepared. A report detailing a concentrated mix of sedatives and laxatives. Enough to hospitalize someone for days." Mark made a small wounded sound. Rachel froze. The sweet expression vanished, replaced by something cold and trapped. Then Detective Morrison pulled out a tablet. "There is one more piece of evidence we would like you to hear." She pressed play. A child's voice filled the room. Clear, steady, unmistakable. "My mommy told me when I was 3 that if I ever talked again something bad would happen to Aunt Sarah Miller. She said my voice was dangerous and that every word would hurt her. So I stopped talking for 5 years to protect my aunt." The recording continued. Maya Stevens describing what she overheard. The phone conversation. The night before the trip. Every detail delivered in that careful, serious voice. "I could not let Mommy hurt Aunt Sarah. She is the only one who ever really saw me. Even when I could not talk, she listened." The recording ended. Silence. And if this story has you on the edge of your seat right now, please take just 1 second to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything to me, and I read every single comment. Now let us finish this. Rachel stared at the tablet as if it had bitten her. "That is not possible," she said. "She cannot talk. She has been silent since she was 3. This is fabricated." "You just confirmed that you believed your daughter could not speak," Detective Morrison replied softly. "But according to medical records, the real ones, your daughter was diagnosed with selective mutism. A condition often caused by fear or trauma." She let the words settle. "Your daughter stopped speaking because you terrified her into silence for 5 years. That is child psychological abuse," Morrison continued, "in addition to fraud, forgery, and attempted poisoning." Rachel's face twisted. The mask did not crack. Chattered. "She was supposed to stay quiet," Rachel snarled. "She was never supposed to talk." "Rachel, stop," Mark said, his voice shaking. "Just stop." He turned to the detectives. "I want a lawyer. A separate lawyer. I will cooperate. I will tell you everything. She planned all of it. The signatures. The transfers. I was scared of her. I will testify." Rachel whipped toward him, fury blazing. You pathetic coward. After everything I did for us. Detective Park stood. Mrs. Miller, you are under arrest. Please stand and place your hands behind your back. The handcuffs closed around her wrists. She was still talking, still trying to justify, still trying to manipulate. But there was no one left to manipulate. Everyone in that room had seen the truth. Everyone had heard her own daughter's testimony. Rachel Miller was escorted out of the conference room, out of the building, and into a waiting police car. I watched through the video feed as my sister, the golden child, the perfect mother, the woman who had terrified a 3-year-old into silence and tried to poison her own sister, disappeared into the back seat. I felt Maya Stevens squeeze my hand. I looked down at her. It's over, she whispered. It's over. Chloe Bennett let out a long breath. Well, I guess they'll want that Mother of the Year plaque back. Should we mail it to her at her new address behind bars? I almost laughed. Almost. Justice was coming. But there was one more thing I had to do. 2 weeks later, Mecklenburg County Family Court. The courtroom was small and practical. No dramatic columns or sweeping architecture like in movies. Just fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, and a judge's bench that had witnessed thousands of broken families. But that day something was being put back together. I sat at the front table in my best professional outfit, the same one I wore to major client meetings. This mattered more than any client ever had. Maya sat beside me. She had chosen her own dress that morning, purple, her favorite color. She brushed her hair by herself. She was nervous. I could tell. Her foot bounced under the table, but she was not silent anymore. The judge reviewed the case file. Rachel's arrest. The fraud. The forgery. The attempted poisoning. 5 years of psychological abuse inflicted on a child. Mark Stevens had signed away his parental rights in exchange for cooperating with prosecutors. He had known everything. He had done nothing. He did not deserve to be Maya's father. And somewhere inside that weak, frightened heart of his, he knew it. The judge looked up. He was an older man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I've reviewed the emergency custody petition, he said. Given the circumstances, the arrest of the mother, the cooperation of the father, and the extensive documentation of psychological abuse, I'm prepared to rule. He turned his attention to Maya, not to me. Young lady, he said gently, I understand you recently began speaking again after many years of silence. That took extraordinary courage. Maya nodded. She was gripping my hand so tightly my fingers were going numb. I'd like to ask you directly in your own words. Where would you like to live? She looked at me. Then at the judge. Then back at me. And then she stood. 9 years old, wearing a purple dress, with more bravery than most adults ever find. I want to live with my Aunt Sarah Miller, she said. Her voice was clear. Strong. The same voice she had given up for 5 years to protect someone she loved. She's the only one who ever really saw me, Maya continued. Even when I couldn't talk, she listened. She read me books. She sat with me. She never made me feel like something was wrong with me. She paused, then added, also she makes really good pancakes. Quiet laughter moved through the courtroom. Even the judge smiled. He signed the papers. Emergency custody granted to Sarah Miller. As we walked out of the courthouse, I could not stop looking at Maya. She was talking non-stop. About the courtroom, about what she wanted for lunch, about a bird she had seen on the window ledge, about whether we could get a dog someday. 5 years of silence. Now she could not stop talking. And I would not have changed a thing. That evening we had dinner in my apartment. Our apartment. I had already started turning the spare room into Maya's bedroom. Purple walls, her choice. Bookshelves everywhere. A reading corner by the window. Aunt Sarah, she asked through a mouthful of pasta. Yes, sweetheart. Can I tell you about dinosaurs? I smiled. Absolutely. What followed was a 25-minute lecture on every dinosaur she had ever read about, including detailed arguments about which ones would win in fights. Apparently, velociraptors are overrated because of movies, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex has unfair advantages due to media bias. The real winner, according to Maya, was the Ankylosaurus. Basically, a tank with a built-in weapon. I nodded seriously through all of it. I did not need to understand dinosaur battle strategy. I just needed to listen. Maya started therapy the following week with a specialist in childhood trauma. Some sessions were hard. 5 years of fear and silence do not vanish overnight. There were days when she grew quiet again. Days when old terror crept back in. But there were more good days. Days when she laughed out loud. Days when she sang in the shower. Days when she came home from school bursting with stories about new friends who had never known her as the silent girl. Just as Maya. Rachel faced multiple felony charges. The evidence was overwhelming. She accepted a plea deal to avoid trial. I did not attend the hearings. I had better things to do. The trust fund was frozen and audited. Most of the stolen money was traced and recovered. I became the sole trustee, managing it carefully for our future. Mine and Maya's. I sold the family home. Too many complicated memories. I used part of the proceeds to start an education fund for Maya. The rest went into savings. Walkaway money multiplied. Sometimes I think about my mother. About the letter she wrote, standing firm while cancer was taking her. About the quiet warning she whispered to her granddaughter. Something is wrong in her heart. Patricia Miller saw the truth about her own daughter. And even in death she protected the people who needed protecting. I like to think she would be proud. Last Saturday morning, Maya and I had breakfast on my small apartment balcony. Nothing fancy. Pancakes, orange juice, and early autumn sunlight. She told me about a dream she had. A koala who could drive a car. A castle made entirely of the pancake palace. And a very polite dragon named Barnaby who apologized every time he accidentally set something on fire. It made no sense at all. It was perfect. I sipped my coffee and listened. Really listened. This is what family is supposed to sound like. Not silence. Not lies. Not fear and manipulation. Just this. A child rambling about Pancake Palace. Morning light through the trees. Two people who chose each other sitting together talking about everything and nothing. Maya paused and looked at me. Aunt Sarah, thank you for listening. Really listening. Even when I couldn't talk. I squeezed her hand. Always, sweetheart. Always. Sometimes the quietest people are not weak. They are just waiting for someone they trust enough to finally speak. Maya found her voice. And I found my family. Some stories have happy endings. Ours was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Please subscribe to our channel and click one now and do not miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next one.